Every couple of years, a company releases something new, something actually new, something crazy. And in 2026, it was the Galaxy Z Fold 8. And now that the honeymoon period is over, let me tell you what I actually think about this phone 28 days later. Alright, if you go and watch my initial unboxing of the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 8, you could see that I was completely in love with this phone. Not only is the new form factor really nice, but how thin it is as well. It's at 4.1 millimeters thick when unfolded right there. It's a very, very thin phone. And I also really love the displays, and initially, I really loved the cameras, but we'll get to that later. And these displays are particularly good for consuming content, and it's not just how good the actual displays are, it's the actual aspect ratio as well. These days, most foldables, when you open them up, they're more of a square, but because of the 4:3 aspect ratio when this guy is open, it gives you very minimal black bars when you're watching content, and it doesn't matter if it's landscape or even portrait. But what these displays are particularly good for, because of that 120 Hz refresh rate, is actually gaming, and with the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 inside of this guy and about 4,800 milliamp hours of battery, this phone is, I said it in my last video, but this phone might be one of the best gaming phones. And then one thing I want to touch on really quickly is just multitasking on the Z Fold 8. Obviously, it's really good. You can have two of the same phone basically in one hand. I did just want to touch on it because it is important, but that's something that everybody else is covering in their own reviews, so let's go ahead and move on. Now, when I first unboxed the Z Fold 8, I thought that these cameras were absolutely amazing, and you can hear me saying that in my initial impressions video. But after spending, again, about 28 days with the Z Fold 8, the cameras aren't actually that great. Now, that's not to say that these cameras are absolutely horrible by any means, but I will say I'm recording this video on my iPhone 15, the base iPhone 15, and those cameras are better than these. So we'll put it that way. When you're in a very bright environment, maybe you're outside, the pictures that this phone takes are absolutely amazing. But when you're in a more challenging environment like I am right now, with just one key light on to light just me, this phone really does start to struggle like a lot. That being said, if you're using the native camera app on the Z Fold 8, then the computational photography can make up for some of the mistakes and lacklusterness of the back cameras. But if you're not, like, I personally like to use an app called the Blackmagic camera app. If you know, you know. But it doesn't work very well with the Z Fold 8, again, because the sensors aren't that big. It's just not the best camera. And I do wish that they were better, but at the same time, look at how thin that is, man. It barely fits the USB-C port. That's how thin this phone is. So you can't really get mad at Samsung for not cramming a 1-inch sensor in there or something even crazier. So cameras, not that good, but they're as good as they can kind of get for a phone that's this thin. All right, next I want to talk about all the improvements that they made for the Z Fold 8, but it's actually really just stuff that you don't notice. Now, you heard me talking about the 120 Hz display, and it's a really, really good display, but my base iPhone 15 runs at 60 Hz, and maybe I'm crazy, but I can't really tell the difference that much when they're running side by side. Maybe that's just a me thing, I don't know. And also the 3000 nits of peak brightness. I mean, I have this guy on its peak brightness right now, but I actually did a little test where I took a flashlight and held it up to the camera and it got even brighter. So it's only actually reaching that 3000 nits when, let's say, you're outside or in a very, very bright environment, which I know that's what they're supposed to do, but I would like the dial to actually be able to get me to 3000 nits. It would make testing a whole lot easier, and also consuming content that's maybe very dark, maybe like a very dark movie or something like that. It would make that easier to see as well, but hey, you can't get everything. Something else that they said was an improvement, but you can't really notice, is actually the battery. Now, they say there's 4,800 milliamp hours in here, which I do believe, but that doesn't actually tell you how long you're gonna be able to use the phone, which I think is more important than anything else. Because for me, I don't actually use my phones that heavily unless I'm doing like recording or in the middle of gaming or anything like that. But throughout the day, I notice that when I'm just doing normal things like checking the time, sending a couple of texts here and there throughout the day while I'm at work, that the Z Fold 8 dies particularly quickly. And I mean, even when I'm just at home, I've been filming with this phone for just a couple of hours now, and it went from 100% to about 22%, which is not that great. So is 4800 milliamp hours really good? Yes. Did Samsung start to use some silicon in their batteries? Yes. Does that mean this thing has amazing battery life? Most definitely not. And especially when you're using the inner display with peak brightness all the way up and you're watching content or even gaming, which makes the battery life even worse. I'm actually only really seeing 7 to 8 hours of real open screen use when you're doing moderate activity on the Z Fold 8. Okay, so this year the Z Fold 8 obviously has a completely new aspect ratio, and it's really nice, but it does actually come with some compromises. And what I mean by that is that some apps just don't fit very well on the Z Fold 8, especially when you're using the cover screen. Now, I've had a lot of people complaining in my comment sections and also just across the internet that when they're consuming content on like TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram, that the little black bars that are on the side, that they don't really like that. I personally think that's actually a perk rather than a bug or anything like that, because the little heart thing, the comment thing, it's all more off to the side, so you can see the content a little bit better. But some people don't like that, so I figured I'd just mention that before you go off and spend $2,000 on a phone. That's right, this phone costs $2,000. That being said, the actual thickness of the phone, as I keep glazing over, it's extremely thin, 4.1 millimeters thick. It feels like a slab of glass, which is exactly what Apple's been trying to do. I'm ready for the Ultra to come out when it does, and I'm gonna compare it to this guy, but stick around, subscribe so you can see that when it comes out. But yeah, the overall thickness of this phone, really good. And the weight in the hand also really good. It's a light phone, but it doesn't feel so light to where it starts to feel cheap, if that makes any sense. And it doesn't really hurt your hands at all. In my initial impressions video, I mentioned that these corners aren't very rounded, so it can poke into your hand a lot. I noticed that I'm not actually holding the phone like this that often. It's more like this, so you don't even feel those corners anyway. So ignore that comment in the last video. But yeah, overall the feel in the hand for this phone, really good. And the glass on the back, I like the way it feels. It feels premium. The whole phone feels premium. That being said, some people in my comment sections have been saying that the Fold 8 Ultra feels more premium than this. I didn't personally notice a difference, but again, I'm gonna let you know before you go and drop $2,000 on a phone. All right, who is the Z Fold 8 actually for? And I think that this is actually a really interesting question, because the whole shebang with this phone this year is specifically the aspect ratio. Everything else that's in this phone has been in other foldables or other Samsung phones. So there's nothing really technological that'll get people to buy this phone. It's all in the aspect ratio this year. So I think that if you consume a whole lot of short form content on your phone, then maybe getting something like the Z Fold 8 would be really good. That being said, if you're on iPhone, just wait a couple of months, right? Because the iPhone Ultra is supposed to be coming out. It's gonna have basically the same aspect ratio and it's gonna do all the same things. But if you're already an Android user, I would seriously consider picking up the Z Fold 8. It is honestly one of the best phones, if not the best phone I've ever used in a very, very long time. All right, I opened this video by saying that every couple of years, a company does something that's actually crazy. I think that this phone was trying to get there before Apple did, and that's why it just didn't completely hit home for everybody. And literally just a couple of days ago, we had this new Honor phone with a built-in gimbal, like a legit gimbal on the phone. And I think that that phone might actually be more of what I was talking about in the beginning. But that being said, this is still an absolutely crazy phone. So here's my final verdict. The Z Fold 8 is a really, really good phone. Is it worth $2,000? No, I wouldn't say so. It's a good phone, but $2,000 phone? No, it's missing, I think, too many things for it to be considered a $2,000 phone. Again, starting with Exhibit A, the cameras. They're okay, but they're not a $2,000 phone camera set, and it doesn't even have a telephoto. But hey, the fact of the matter is that phones aren't made for everybody. And specifically with a kind of specialized phone like the Z Fold 8, it's definitely not gonna be for everybody. But Yeah, that's all for this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.